I'm live, and so are you. This is your Sensei Owl Bob coming to you from Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Owl Bob. That's our channel here on YouTube. And I just want to tell you all this is just for your entertainment's sake, right? I'm your friendly griot who tells you a story, and you take it from there, right? So I don't know if any of you were here this morning, and basically woke up this morning. I woke up this morning, and you were gone. Okay. That's I think a Mamas and Papas riff. They, I'm sure, stole it from somebody else. Anyway, I just wanted to. Oh yes, so I woke up and, as I have to every morning, kind of meditate to get my body in a semblance of where it can work. Because you know what a good 12 years of hedonism will do to you is make you weigh almost 500 pounds, and then you die in a plate of spaghetti and come back to life in the emergency room, and you have to take 6, 7 years to get yourself back to what I weigh now, about 240. And, I kind of did things like have diabetes, neuropathy, Charcot legs, and a whole bunch of other things that pretty much every other American is going to have, because no matter what you eat, it's all crap. And that's kind of, you could be a vegan and still all of the food that you would buy would kill you, right? Unless you are growing your own food in a greenhouse that, is hermetically sealed, and you control the water and the air that's in there and also the light coming in there, you are going to have poisoned food. Sorry, that's just how it is. And that is, if you kind of head towards Georgia, get on whatever Interstate 80 something goes to Atlanta, and then around Atlanta, there's three or four interstates, and one of them, go Google the Georgia Stones and take one of those, because back in, they stuck those stones in a kind of forest, not 30, 40 miles from Atlanta when it was a little town, like in the early 80s. And then when Atlanta exploded and they put those interstates in, wouldn't you know it, there was no real road going to the Georgia Stones. There was a kind of like little, you know, country road. But when they put in the interstate, they actually have an exit that goes off the interstate right to the Georgia Stones are right next to the interstate. Who knew? Well, those guys did. That's why they put it there. And if you go see it, it's kind of fun. It kind of looks like Stonehenge, but not. And it's kind of like the Ten Commandments, but not. It says, be nice to everybody, blah, 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 blah. But the first one right off the bat says we have to think of Gaia as our mother, and we have to take care of her. And to do that, we have to get rid of 98% of the population. We have to kill the useless eaters by 6 point something billion people to take it down to 500 million, which means, the 20 or so million people who think they're the elites will be there, and the other 480 million will be their slaves, because 6 point whatever billion people there are here now are just a tad little bit of a handful for the the elites to control. And they do a pretty good job at poisoning us and controlling our minds through television and social media and all the rest. And And that's why your friendly Sensei Al Bob, is here to just tell you a story that will help you kind of go, now I want everyone to be, you know, don't believe anything I say, right? Take everything with a grain of salt. Check it out for yourself. Be responsible. Don't wait for some hero to save you. No, you got to. That's what free will's about. You have to ascend, step up to your conscious free will, and co-create with love. Period. That's it. That's the only reality. Everything else is a Luciferian cartoon show. And it's like Itsy and Scratchy. It's pretty, violent. And, if you were in Syria in the last 10 years, it wasn't a fun place. If you were in Iraq in the last 10 years, not so much fun. If you were in Afghanistan for the last 30 years, not so much. Before Russia invaded in early 80s, I think it was maybe, Jimmy Carter was still president. So it was like in the late 70s. Afghanistan was a modern kind of Islamic country. Women were a third of their parliament. Half the lawyers were women. More than 60% of the women were the doctors. Women could be highly educated. They could have their own businesses. Right? It was, it wasn't the Islamic ISIS state that was brought to you by the CIA, just like MS-13 was brought to you by the CIA through Iran-Contra. And, the 8 or so folks within the basement of the Bush-Reagan White House basically got a free ride by presidential pardon brought to you by the guy who just started to be the attorney general. I mean, he's big on that. He was called the Christmas Massacre. I mean, all of those guys, Ali and et al., were all going to jail for a good 10 years because they freaking broke the law. And before they even did a day in the Huskow, they got sprung by this guy who's now just started yesterday as our Attorney General. And don't you think, Manafort et al. And all the rest are going to get sprung? Yeah, I think so. I think Donnie's going to spring himself. So you have to realize that Donnie was, hired as a reality TV show host, and he's been doing a bang up job. The TV show's called Distraction, and demolition derby of our country. So just think of what the country was back in 1976, the 200th birthday of our country. And back in those days, I had a buddy of mine who was the curator and administrator of the South Street Seaport, meaning they decided to fix that up, and he, made a lot of ships and bottles, so they hired him, and he took all the old boats that he could find, and he fixed them up, and for the our 200th birthday, 1976, they had the big ships, every country, you name it, Russia, China, England, Spain, Germany, everybody brought their old big ships and went up the Hudson, right? And I was working at the Theater for the New City. I was working at, Carnegie Hall as ME. So my friend, who was in charge of that celebration and, what happened in New York City and the Hudson and all that, he hired me to light things up, the bridges, the Statue of Liberty, the whole deal. Me and Michael Moody. And Michael Moody, because he was a big time name and lighting designer, but I was the ME, I wired everything. And so the Aegis missile destroyer were just coming online. and they put about 8 of those in the harbor. So when Russia and China and all our quasi enemies kind of came to float up the Hudson, I mean, they just didn't bring the old boats. They had some of their big missile, like, they was a big whoop-de-doo of showing off your military stuff. Well, that's why those Aegis destroyers were there, and those Aegis destroyers had phased array radar. I mean, they could look at everything 360, and those boats were like a floating artificial intelligence. So I had, the all-in pass. So that day, when, from about 8 in the morning till 8 the next morning, I was in one of those, the CCC, the C cubed command, control, and communication spot, and they stuck me in a chair that I had this little joystick, and they had cameras on the tops of all those ships that could look down at everything. So I could like see if my minions were doing their job. And I remember there was this one shot from one of these boats that I could just hit the button and it would be on this gigantic screen in front of me. And then I had a joystick that I could move the camera around. And I looked right down Broadway and I could see from the Battery all the way up to Macy's. And they were having a parade. And what I saw that was truly amazing was that on every block from about 29th Street to about where the Union Square is, they had a beer truck on every corner. And they were giving out free beer to everybody, right? It was like, hey, 200th birthday, let's get everyone drunk. And so it was amazing to watch, like 60 blocks of unbelievably shit-faced people, right? Oh, and that's another little disclaimer. Everyone watching this, I can slip a few bombs here and there. So this ain't, it's 7 o'clock. The little kitty should be in bed by now. Shoo them out of the room. And if you watch this during the day, tell the kids to go out of the room. And pretty much, again, don't believe anything I say. This is just a story. Right? So as I was watching this thought came into my mind. I was just reading a history of Rome, the end of the empire, the collapse, And why Nero was fiddling while Rome burned was that he passed a law in the Senate that any building in Rome that burned, he owned the property. So he's the guy who set Rome on fire so it would burn to the ground so he would own all of Rome. Good idea. And that's kind of where we're at today. And so I was looking down Broadway, watching all these drunk people, and I realized that, 300 to 1,000 years from now, when they are looking at this period, when did America's empire collapse? When did it go off the cliff? And I was saying to myself, well, today is the day they're going to pick, because there must have been, I don't know, 1.5 million people roaming around, drunk out of their minds, and they had bands everywhere, and it was just, and the cops didn't care. As long as you didn't have a gun and shoot people, they let you do whatever the heck, right? So I'm just watching it all going, this is just a bunch of monkeys, right? With beer cups. And so there was, we're kind of still in that same place. Here we are, 2019. Let's round it off to 20. So 76, that's 25 years plus another 20, about 40 years, give or take, from that day. And we haven't learned a thing. Actually, we've gotten stupider. I don't know how you could ever be stupider than that, but we've done a good job of it. So, this morning, when I woke up, as I was telling you this morning, every morning I have to kind of wake up and I have to meditate, because all of the things that I have, diabetes, neuropathy, in the bones in my leg that where your feet come to your ankles, and neuropathy has turned them into mush. So my ankle is just on top of my foot. There's nothing really holding it there. and it's the only thing holding it together is the muscles and the tendons. And yes, I wear little, ace bandage things on my feet so my foot won't snap off if I stumble or so. Because that would be pretty disgusting. I step on a rock or a twig or don't take a step right and my foot snaps off. Ooh, that'd be. So I have to meditate to get my body so we can do all these things. Like I said, my endocrinologist says I'm the healthiest dead guy he knows, and my podiatrist can't believe I'm walking, and all my other doctors are pretty amazed. The guy who does eye surgery on me every 90 days is amazed that he says your eyes are actually healing. Your eyes aren't supposed to heal when you have this diabetic eye thing going on. At best, you go blind slowly, but your eyes are actually getting better. He goes, and that's why I'm one of his guinea pigs. He's like studying me to see why his procedure is like actually not only slowing my blindness, but making it better. It's like pretty amazing. So, but I tell him it's to meditate, 5, 6 times a day. So that's where I was this morning. I was meditating for about 15 minutes. Then I had to go, visit the WC and evacuate. And I came back and I snuggled myself down because it was like, maybe 6 in the morning. And I, went to my little friendly phone here and I went and listened to Richard. What's his last name? Starts with a D. He's a UFO guy. He's the guy who coined the phrase breakaway Richard Dolan, breakaway civilization, right? And he's got a radio show and he's got a podcast and he goes live to just a talking head because virtually everyone on the YouTube, I'd say maybe 95% of folks go on and on and on and just like to hear themselves talk. And your friendly, Al Bob here, at least I tell you that don't believe a word I say, free beer, exactly, Jane. You know, and I tell you that I am your griot. I tell you stories, right? And then we do in the evenings, guided meditations, and it's all, it's you got your hand on the tiller. Yep. Mutate. Yep. Captain Obvious Nero. Good one, Sarah. I like it. I could not finish the Akashic exercise last night. That's fine. Mutate, just go. I mean, that's the beauty of YouTube. I have about 400 of these right on there. Right. And I would suggest, Mutant, what you should do, and this is only a suggestion, never do anything I say. I lead by example. I'm not telling you to do anything. But I would, go back and start from the other end, from the beginning, and just kind of click, okay, look at that. And the first, within the first 30 seconds, if you're not going, oh, this is pretty interesting, go on to the next one, go on to the next one. And I went back just to see how I was doing. And what's interesting is from the beginning, all first when I started, give or take, to October 15th, give or take, I was out there in the deep green. And I was like 30 miles to the closest, any YouTube, any internet, anything. And so I had to videotape it on my phone and then go to the library 40 miles away. And that 10, 15, 20-minute little video I would do would take freaking hours to load up on my YouTube channel. So I would befriended the librarian and I would say, here, let me just keep this in your desk while it loads up and I go do some errands. Anyway, so that's how that was. And they're all kind of interesting. They've got some better ones and worse ones. And then October, I came here and I started doing, some intuitive visioning. and I saw the trends coming down the line. So I started this thing called 40 Days and 40 Nights. And within 40 days and 40 nights, this thing was going to happen. Now, if you go read the Bible or all the books, all these guys go off into the woods and have 40 days and 40 nights. And Jesus did, Moses did, you name it, they did, right? Job, everybody had their 40 days and 40 nights. Now, those 40 days and 40 nights weren't like linear. Some took, look at freaking Moses was out there in the hinterlands looking for Israel for almost 50 years, and he was just down the street. If he would just stop being a really nasty dude, he would have found it a lot quicker. But anyway, so I started doing the 40 days and 40 nights with a little countdown. But we're not there yet. It's already been, if you wanted to be linear about it, middle of October to now. What's that? How many? October, November, December, January. So 5 times 30, give or take. That's what? 300, 5 times 30 is what? See, my brain is slow. 3 is 90, 2 more is 60. That's like 120, give or take. So that's longer than 40, right? But that's why the 40 days and 40 nights aren't a linear thing. And that's when I also came across the realization, hey, there's a window of opportunity here of something really amazing can change. Because, maybe every meaning it's about this much open and it has that much to go. So, and then it can close. So we got, until I would say next January of this window open, right? So then the other, so is that the window, 40 days, 40 nights. And there was another little biorhythm thing I was looking at, right? So, my little thing tonight is who are we? Where'd we come from? What are we doing here, right? And so this morning, why I'm here we are at 22 minutes and 22 seconds. So every morning I have to reorder all my molecules, just like we do when we go into state. We energize ourselves with the prana and we get all our molecules going into photonic light, and we can travel through time and space, right? So that's how my body can still be working even though I should be dead. So I went off to the facilities, came in, snuggled up, and I was listening to JD, and he was going on about, being, so he's a historian, and he's been looking at all of this, military, industrial, media, banking, education, military industrial complex, right? All of those, and that's kind of what's, I call it the hidden hand, the powers that shouldn't be, the sock puppets. And, and it's been going on since a long time, a million years or so. I mean, Homo sapiens sapien has been in this kind of maze, monkey maze, for somewhere between 600,000 years and a million years. And our little avatars were made by some demigod, right? And if you go study the Old Testament, the New Testament, all the Testaments, the Vedas, all of the holy books, the story is, all of the little pictorial things on, the Sumerian tablets and the Babylonian tablets and everybody's, antacid. You'll see this is the same old same. But anyway, so I heard Rich going on and on and on about this, and what he did that was quite interesting was that he started to look at the Freedom of Information Act. It's been around a while. And he went from 1946 statistics all the way up to mid 50s, and he had the documents that people see. To get a document out of the government, you just can't say, "Hey, I want to know about X, Y, or Z." No, you have to know what that document is. It has a code number. You have to know that number. You have to know, what book is in, what filing cabinet, all of that kind of stuff before you can get it. So there's a lot of digging that needs to do, and that's why there's this quilt of documents that have been, unearthed. Now, people who go, "I don't believe in extraterrestrials," if they were there, why wouldn't they just land on the front porch of the White House? No, because those guys have been with us forever. Like I said, we are there. And where'd we come from? Their test tube, right? Peter Ustinov and Nero. Yep. Captain Obvious Nero. Yep. Boop, 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 boop. I have orthopedic. Guys, I got everything I need, but I love the fact. What you can do is send me some more orthopedic shoes. Because I got 2 pairs, but they're gonna wear out. I've already worn out a couple of pairs. Yes, healer, heal thyself. I've been doing it pretty. So I was in my bed, and I was already kind of in state, and I kind of, when I bring you someplace, I know I can sense a lot of you like fall asleep, right? Which is okay. That's like deep meditation, right? So, cementode. Okay. Good to see you, buddy. Welcome aboard. Yep, yep, yep. Nitty gritty. How you doing, buddy? Hi, everyone. My lucky frog. Yep. Okay. So there I was in bed listening to Richard go on about all of these events, right? All these things that he had FOIA reports on. Which, if you look at it, he was like just going, he had about 20 of these things, and he was going down them. And these were, government documents with X, Y, and Z people writing from one guy to another. One general writing to, the guy who's head of the FBI and the head of the CIA and all the rest, right? And so where did I go? So as I give you, bring you forth into your Akashic record, when I bring you into state through your breath, and then we take a little journey. We go into your sanctuary of your own choosing, your superconscious mind, or we go into your lodge, and we go into the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And we don't eat the fruit. That's very toxic. We go through the roots. That's connected to everything. And we travel to all of these lands. We went to the land of, and we also, the 9 doors takes us to these lands. But when we go through the front door, we go in, right? And so those folks know we're going in. So we have to bring an avatar down the chimney of the fireplace and a few other muscly folk to go with us to protect us, right? We have to go as a crew. We have to go in as the, shock troops of love's co-creation. So, but when we go in through the tree of knowledge, through the roots, we go in the back door. So we're invisible. So it's like remote viewing. That's what we're doing when we go through the roads. When we go through the roots, we are remote viewing. All those places, when I took you to the land of the Amazons, when I took you to the land of death, when I took you to the land of the 8 kings of magic, when I took you to all the different places I've taken you. I took you to Lucifer's office building at 666 Babylonian Avenue. So tonight we're going to do the same thing. We're going to remote view all, between 19, no, we're going to go from 1840 all the way up to 1960. And we're going to remote view all of the hidden hand, all of the powers that shouldn't be, all the sock puppets, all the different people who created this new world, old world, same as it ever was world of Luciferian illusion. We're going to see the whole story tonight. That's where we're going to go. So here it is, 31 and 6 seconds. So let's see what you guys are saying. And then in the next 5-10 minutes, let me get a few more people in the house. Mutate. A John Birmingham video. Recommendation, old woman. Photoshop to be young. Gay man. So, well, bottom line about John is a really sweet person. John is the canary in the social coal mine. So you really can't beat up on John because he's like a saint in a certain, not really, because, having to deal with sometimes, if he drinks too much coffee, meaning he's thrown me out under the bus 26 times. But every time I left and I found a more interesting moment in time and space. It was like Lost in Space. It's about time. It's about space. Anyway, John is John Birmingham. He's not like anything else, and that's why he's special. And if you want to know about yourself, just watch John, because every one of us have an anxiety that he shows us to our face. He is the canary in the coal mine. He's the person who's given us the 411 of, hey, look out for this. And he's not dumb, that's for sure. He's a smart guy. And all his videos, his videos, and I don't know, he's like Jerry Lewis. I'm like Dean Martin, and he's Jerry Lewis. And the French think Jerry Lewis is the best filmmaker in the universe. John is kind of like Vincent van Gogh. One day he's going to be like, oh, wow. He was so amazing, right? And maybe. But, anyway, so we should not diss John, right? And if anyone has the right to do it, and I don't diss John. I basically stand up because he's my friend, and I don't give up on my friends. And John has come a long way from 2.5 years ago. And hopefully John can do better and better, because that's what all of our jobs are, is to step up, to move forward, to not get stuck, not do the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and get in a rut, and once you get in a rut, it's hard to get out of that rut. You have to, the story of Buddha standing by the side of the road, luminescent in his energetics, and a traveler, a bozo, goes, wow, are you God? And Buddha goes, no. Well, man, what are you? And Buddha says, I'm awake. And the average meat puppet is not awake. The average mud puppet is less than awake. Now, the bag of water, the average bag of water is awake maybe 10, 15%. But if you're part of the cadre of, the adepts, you're looking at being awake 30 to 50%. And if you go into state, if you meditate every day, 5, 6, 10 times a day, very quickly you will get into being awake 60 to 75%. And then that last 25%, I've been working on it, for the last 30 years, and I'm at about 85%. And so I'm 85% awake, and between 15 and 20%, a stone cold moron. So that's why you need, and that's why, the last 5 years I died back in, I guess around, I got really sick around 2012, but I ignored it. And so maybe 2014 was 14 or 15. I think it was 14. That's when I ended up in the plate of spaghetti. And, it's taken me since then to get to where I am now. And I had to become quite aware, awake, meaning every step I take, I have to be very careful so I don't fall down a staircase or slip on a pebble or a twig. I just have to keep my eye on the ball. Yep, exactly. Don't dig yourself a hole if you can't dig yourself out. Right. And we dig ourselves in holes and we don't even realize we're doing it. Right. And that is part of the problem of being a meat puppet, a an ugly bag of water, a mud puppet. It's easy to get in a rut. Yeah, I mean, John is quite gifted in everything he does, and if he would just stop worrying about the stuff he can't do anything about and just focus, meaning, why I became very good at all the things I did, I stopped worrying about the things I couldn't, make a difference about. So, when I was being Mr. Electrician, being Mr. Lighting designer, being Mr. Scenic designer, being a painter, a sculptor, a healer. I had a healing practice in New York City for about 5 years, maybe longer, from, let's see, 73 to 83. But I got tired of it because I got better and better at it, and people thought I was miraculous, right? And I got tired of that because the only way you can heal is, doctor, heal thyself. And I could help people get to a certain place of some level of homeostasis, balance. Um, so, yep. Hey, buddy, how you doing, bud? Sarah, Esoteric Dragon. Exactly. We get, a lot of people, we all get annoyed at the people who remind ourselves about ourselves, right? That's why bullies pick on people, right? And if you want to get rid of a bully, just ignore them. They'll move on to the next person, right? And the other thing is, I was always extraordinarily clumsy when a bully would come by. I mean, I would totally not know they were there, totally ignore them, and then I would step on their foot, trip, my head would go into their stomach, and then we'd fall down a staircase, right? And people, my God, he knows kung fu, and then everybody'd leave me alone. I mean, I kind of did that 4 or 5 times in a space of 15 years. I mean, I had no idea. This one guy tried to whack me upside the head with a baseball bat, and I was trying to put my arm in a sweater. I had the sweater over my head. I couldn't see anything. He's coming up to whack me upside and push me off the staircase, which was 4 stories up, and his bat got stuck in my sweater, and I said, "What's that?" And I kind of turned and I flipped him over my shoulder and whoop, right over the banister, and he fell. It was a spiral staircase, and the whole school was down at the bottom, and he was screaming, and they all looked up and watched him. Ah! And everyone did. Any of his buddies try and break his fall? No, they got out of the way. So he hit a table and he broke it up and he got like splinters all in him. And that's when Kung Fu was on TV. So, Al knows Kung Fu. So nobody, none of those seniors or juniors or mean sophomores try to beat me up, you know, because my guardian angel was always watching out for my back. Like I had no idea. I had a sweater over my head. I couldn't see anything. Right? Bung Fu, exactly. Buddy. Oh, okay. So we're at 40 minutes and 40 seconds. So we're gonna do a go into state, and we're going to, I have every time I take you someplace, that is remote viewing. All the evening, you know, meditations are like, I am teaching you how to use these tools. I'm showing you all your Akashic record, your lodge, your sanctuary of your own choosing, all these places, the meadow, you know, all of these things, the tree of good and evil, and the tree of life, these are all tools. Yes, the pull over, under, over, exactly. But Bung Fu, I like that. My new martial art, Bung Fu. Okay, 7 people. I think that's enough to go into state. So, okay, I'm going to put you guys down for a moment. Maybe a look at the at my little monk's cell here, right? I'm going to turn off the bright light. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh. I have to move a little bit. All right. So everyone get comfy. Sit down, lie down, put your body, your avatar, in a position where you'll be safe, because as you go into state, you're going to put your body, your avatar, on automatic, right? And it will be focused on your breath, right? Yep, exactly. So, everyone comfy, right? You're in a safe position. You're lying down, you're sitting down, so once you go on automatic, you won't fall over, right? And hurt yourself. So you're in a safe place, right? And know that I'm watching you and taking care of you. And if you need to become back awake, all I have to do is snap my fingers and you'll be right back in your body. But for now, you're focusing your conscious mind on your breath. You're breathing in 20%. And as you do that, filling your lungs as much as you can, what you're doing is lifting your diaphragm and it's opening up your lung space. Well, you're breathing out 30%. And you're emptying your lungs, which will make it a lot easier to breathe in that 20%. And the only way you can do this is to focus your conscious mind, that little squirrel in your head, in the metal cage of your Rolodex, and your mind isn't where you are, isn't where your soul is, right? In your avatar, your mud puppet, your meat puppet, the place where your soul closely is connected is your heart. Your heart is the central processing unit, not your brain. Your brain is just the card catalog, right? It's got useless information in it, right? That's all it is. So you're focusing your conscious mind, where the squirrel is, on your breath, right? Breathing in that 20%, filling your lungs. And as you do that, I'm going to count from 1 to 3. And as I do, you're going to go into a deep, 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 deep state of conscious relaxation, where your conscious mind is totally focused on your breath. And 1, You're going into a deep, deep, deep state of relaxation, just in time. And your body's in a comfortable, safe position, and your conscious mind, that little squirrel, is totally focused on your breath, and you're breathing it in, right? And you're no longer thinking about all the stupid crap that your squirrel goes on about, right? You're just not thinking about it because it's focused 100% on your breath. And you're going deeper and deeper and deeper in this state of relaxation, conscious relaxation. And your body is going, your avatar, your mud puppet, your meat puppet is going on automatic, right? Your autonomic system is taken over, and you are breathing in the prana of the universe, and you're filling your lungs 20% more. So your diaphragm is lifting, it's opening up all the areolas, all those little sacs, all those little hairs, and it's going into that area where the blood flows through your lungs. And the blood, the iron-rich blood, is picking up the prana, right? And as the blood flows through your veins, your arteries, and your capillaries, it doesn't go blub, blub, blub. No, it swirls. So it's swirling clockwise around the walls of your veins, arteries, and capillaries. And inside of that swirl is another swirl going counterclockwise. And inside of that is another one going clockwise. So they're going in 3 different dimensions. And it is creating a polyphase alternating current of scalar frequencies, right? And what that does is create photonic light. And photonic light is the light of love's co-creation. Whereas the light, the Hertzian light that's coming from within our whole universe of the Luciferian illusion of time and space is a gray mist, a fog. That light throws a shadow. Photonic light does not throw a shadow. It lights in every angle of space and time, every dimension. So there are no shadows to hide in, right? And back in the day, before Babylon, we were all telepathic. And telepathic is a form of this photonic energy. And when that photonic energy is bathing our skin and going in through our eyes, and as we breathe in the prana, it energizes our body, and through our pineal gland, we basically are telepathic, right? And through all of the salts that we're exposed to, all the fluorides, all the chlorinated biphenyls, all of those things are turning, back in the Bible days, when, that city was turned into salt. That's exactly what happened to their pineal glands. And bingo, when that thing turned 100% into, salt, so did the people, right? They slowed down so much. They became a crass, base, hexafluoride, sodium hexafluoride. That's what they turned themselves into. And of course, wouldn't you know, that's what you need to take uranium and turn it into U-235, And that's also what you need to turn the aluminum that you dig up, bauxite, and turn it into aluminum that you make airplanes out of. So as we develop this material world based on those salts, we are turning ourselves, alchemically into base elements. Where we're supposed to do the other way around, turn lead into gold. And the lead is the basis to the base, and it's not about making money, because right now lead is, I think, more costly than gold. So if you were just knocking lead into gold, you'd be, So no, the alchemist is supposed to turn the base metal ourselves, our, you know, bag of water, into that gold thread that goes from our pineal gland through our, top chakra into our Akashic record. And that's what we're doing right now, illuminating ourselves. So we're breathing that 20% in, right? And breathing out that 30%. And that 30% breath out, you release more toxins out of your body through breath, like, thousands of cubic feet every day, way more than you do defecating or urinating or sweating, right? So when you breathe, and you breathe in an environment that the air is good, then that's when you really start to wake up, right? That's why I live in the deep green. I'm 50 miles the closest to any kind of factory. That's why I'm in a 200 square mile, right in the middle of uber mountain poverty. So there are no people there. There are very few. Only the people who can't escape are there. So there's one little county road, and there's no highway. No, the closest interstate is 50 miles away. And I live. All the mountains where I live are what are known as sawtooth mountains, not lumpy mountains. So all the electromagnetic, hit those mountains and stop. I don't get, there's a radio transmitter 30 miles away from me. I can't receive it. The only kind of radio I can get is late at night off the skip. I can get Chicago and I can get Ireland and I can get Mexico, but I can't get, Johnson City, which is about 50 miles from me, right? And I can get New York City, anyway. So get Texas, but not during the day. I get two channels, FM channels, during the day. One, the college station, and this Baptist Holy Roller guy. So that's it, right? So I'm not, there is, I have to drive 35 miles for my cell phone to work, right? If I want to make a phone call. There is no cable TV. There is no internet. There is no Wi-Fi. There is none of the above. No computers. No nothing. Right? There is no satellite because satellites are right on the horizon, and because of these, sawtooth mountains, it gets in the way, and they're covered in trees, and the trees are actually pretty healthy. There's certain species that grow up and don't belong there, and then they die. I mean, they're like weeds, so they kind of grow up and then. But the locust and the oak and the maple are still pretty prevalent, and the pine are still there, and because it's too expensive to cut the trees down. Now they're doing it, but it's still difficult and hard, and anyway, so. Where I live in the deep green, the birds are singing all the time. The insects, the frogs, the turtles, they're all there. Just like the school used to be up until about 2012. When Inga died in 2008 or 9, she was really the person keeping energetically this place as alive as it was. And then I had to sell this place, and I moved on, and I only come back as a guest. And so the folks who here have no consciousness of what's going on here. Now, John does. He doesn't quite understand, but he does. Not Inga Culver. No, no, no. No, no. Inga Solanovich. George and Inga Solanovich. Their story, you should go Google them. They were pretty amazing. They were, she was from Norway, he was from Russia. They were in Paris at the art school there. They fell in love. They went to Germany because at that time in the 20s, Germany was like it. And George's father was more revolutionary than Uncle Joe, so they had to get out of Russia. So then the war came, and they were in and out of camps, but they weren't Jewish, they weren't this, they didn't rock the boat too much, and they stayed under the radar, but they were always on the move. And then when the Allies came over, they were right in the middle of the gunfight, right? So they had a pretty tough time of it. And they couldn't emigrate from Europe to America. They had to go to Argentina, and they met up with the Nazis again. And then they went from Argentina because the Nazis were such good pals of the American government. Anybody from Argentina could come to America, especially Nazis. So, they came, and they went to New York, and they did, they're amazing artists. So they made money doing, paintings of the rich people of New York. And they saved up enough. They didn't do anything except work and take care of their kids. And, they made up enough money, and they had this map of America, and they every night would throw darts at it. And then where the dart landed, they put a red pin. And the place that had the most red pins was Roanoke, Virginia. So they came here, and they found 200 acres here up on the backside of this thing called Bent Mountain, and they live on Sheep Mountain, which is a littler mountain behind Bent Mountain. And when they came here, the people who were up here were Black and Cherokee, and those folks had married together to hide, because if you were just a Cherokee, you were dead meat. If you were just a black guy, dead meat. So they were like hiding in plain sight, but way on the backside of the mountain, and didn't, make any waves. And so they sold, a good half of their real estate to George and Inga. And George and Inga fixed up the homestead first, and then built the art school, and then built about 9 little cabins for the artists to come. And it was like a artist retreat. And it kind of worked, and it kind of didn't. But they were here from 50 something until they died. And George died in the late 90s, and Inga died, I think, in '09 or '08. And this was, they had experienced the worst of the worst. And Inga has a novel about it. She wrote her story. And like I said, if you go on, Google Inga Solanovich and George Solanovich, you can find them. And they built the school and all these other things. And I knew them from New York, when they were in New York. And Inga was a great sculptress, and she was a great artist. In a lot of ways, she was better than George. George had this style. He was like Dali. He had a style. And if you liked it, it's like pretty amazing. And if not, and he was a lot like Dali. He had the same kind of like ego and you name it. And Inga liked that George was, out there in front, and she could just enjoy life. He was the distraction. So everybody was like looking at George while Inga did her thing, right? And one of her things was she did sculptures, bronze sculptures. And I guess it was in the late '70s. I was working at this foundry called Battle, Joe Battle Foundry, and they came there, and they did some hot wax motifs, and I was working there, and I met them, right? Not for a long period of time, but a couple of weeks that they were there doing their business in New York. And Inga was an Aquarian like me, and she and I kind of hit it off. She's like in her 50s, and I was like in my late 20s, and or mid 20s. And so, years later, like 40 years later, I come and stumble into Roanoke, and I meet a guy who lives up here, and I come up, and he goes, "Oh, you got to meet Inga." And he took me down to meet her, and I walked through her door. She looked at me, I looked at her, and she goes, "Oh, there you are." And I said, "Oh, there you are." And we became buds, and I was living downtown. I owned a bunch of buildings downtown. And when the real estate thing started to heat up, and this town started to, go from being dead for the last 30 years to, people starting to make it into the hospital hipster town that it wants to be. It hasn't got there yet. It's going to crash and burn. I sold all that stuff. I bought it for like nothing, and I sold it for four times nothing. And Inga said to me, "Oh, you need to buy the school. You're the one guy who could do something with that." So at that point, I either had to pay tax on it or buy another building. So she needed X, and I had it in the bank plus, right? So I said, no problem. So her son-in-law, who thinks he's the big dude, tried to force me into paying, you know, $20,000 more than what the county said it was worth. And if I wanted to be an asshole, because no one was going to buy this place, it had to buy it as is. And but Inga was my friend, and she needed the money. I had it, and if I just kept it in the bank, I'd have to pay taxes on it. So I bought the place. And what made her son-in-law and her daughter, who think they're really, again, they're very bourgeois. Their parents were the most coolest avant-garde people on the planet, and they are like, they want to be in Roanoke magazine, and they're always talking about, they're like Donald, both of them are very sweet people, very nice people, but again, they dig themselves in their own rut. Anyway, so that guy, at the closing, I said, sure, okay. And I basically said, listen, I want to kind of hang out in the place before I really buy it. So I'll give you a couple of grand just to stay there and hold it. It's like earnest money for a few months. And I'm going to go off to Florida. When I come back from Florida, if I make up my mind, yeah, okay, it'll be a done deal. So I'm heading back. I called them up, said, okay, I got my lawyer, work out the deal, give it to my lawyers. They'll fax it to me. I'll read it over, sign it, send it back, and then we'll have the closing. No problem. And the guy said, "You have the money? You got your loan? How'd you get a loan? You can't get a loan." And I said, "I got the money. Don't worry about it." And he couldn't believe. So when we go to close, he don't have the money. He don't have the money. And their lawyer goes, "No, no, no. He put the money in escrow, and I got the money. So just sign it, and it's." And, for years he couldn't believe that I could manifest that kind of money because he couldn't, and he was rich guy, blah 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 blah, and that's pretty much everyone who gets stuck. That's how they look at things. They see things as we live in a world of abundance, not a world of scarcity. And most people, because of the powers that shouldn't be, who constantly go on and on and on, how we live in a world of scarcity, and you better be thankful for them, because whatever few crumbs you have comes from them, and they can take it away anytime they want. No, that's not how it is, and this window of opportunity is coming more and more, right? So, two, you're in a deep, deep, deep state of relaxation. Your conscious mind is totally focused on your breath. Squirrel in the cage of your Rolodex in your mind is asleep. Your body is on remote control, and you are seeing your lungs breathe in that prana and seeing your heart, turn it into photonic light. And you're seeing every cell of your body energized by that photonic light. And you see your mitochondria. They're like little lightning bolts, and they are grounding out through your chi into Mother Earth. So see that in every day and every way, you're taking the piece of the earth and you're making it stronger. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, as it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without amen. And in every day and every way, we will take the piece of the earth and make it stronger. And we will ground that light out so the circuit can flow through us. And we can be at one in every day and every way with love's co-creation, because love's co-creation is the grand creator. It's none of those words of the gods and demigods. Those are the illusions of religion, of Luciferian control. See it clearly. See your body being healed. Every cell of your body is being healed. And you're taking that energy and you're grounding it into Mother Earth. Hail Mary, full of grace. Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women. Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and in the hour of death. Amen. As it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be. And every day, in every way, you take the piece of this light, this photonic light, and you bring that peace into your heart, and you live every nanosecond choosing to ascend to your consciousness's free will. And the only way you can do that is by being awake, like Buddha. Not worrying about it, not worrying about dying, not worrying about being fat, not worrying how you're going to pay your bills, not worrying about any of the illusions of the Luciferian world. For only love's co-creation is real. Everything else is non-existent. Everything else is an illusion. This whole universe, not just our planet, our whole universe, because it was created, that Big Bang that created the universe was Lucifer breaking heaven. Right? The hegemony of heaven, and Lucifer was in charge. He was in charge of that hegemony. And when love's co-creation, that was kind of silent, just kind of letting the plan go on, created, this consciousness that had free will, that could choose what to do. Well, everything else couldn't choose. It was working by the dogmatic plan of heaven, the hegemony, right, of Lucifer. And Lucifer got so pissed off, the petulant child, Lucifer, broke heaven. Now, he didn't have a free will, but he did have an ego. And through the power of that anger, that separation, all of the fear that Lucifer felt, he crashed and broke heaven, and that breaking of heaven was such an energetic explosion, that was the Big Bang. And that bang lasted that long. Now your avatar hasn't woken up, but it kind of shivered, because it kind of got this realization that it's an illusion. But now the squirrel's gone back to sleep. But you're awake. And you're taking that photonic energy that you created by breathing 20% in and breathing out 30%, and taking it through your blood and bringing the swirl of the polyphased scalar energy of that photonic light, and taking that light to every cell of your body and grounding it out so all of your mitochondria became alive and energized your pineal gland, your third eye, and bingo, your eyes are awake. Now you are awake, and you're seeing in your imaginary mirror right behind your eyelids, because your eyes are closed, because your avatar is asleep. But in your imaginary mirror, where you dream, where you have REM sleep, right behind your eyelids, you're seeing all that photonic light, and you're shining it into your subconscious. And your subconscious is not a scary place. It is a library of your soul's, of your consciousness's free will experience of this whole shooting match, right? Because there is no good or bad or evil. Now, within the construct of Luciferian illusion, everything is friggin' evil. Everything. And whatever little bit of photonic light shines in and brings out a good result comes because love's co-creation created everything, created Lucifer, and Lucifer manifested, not created, but manifested this illusion. So, when you are awake, you get to choose with your free will what you're going to do. And if you navigate nanosecond to nanosecond, you're just like Daffy Duck, angel on one shoulder, devil on the other. And you basically choose being your better angel, and you will step up, baby step by baby step. And you will ascend, not evolve, ascend to your consciousness is free will. And when everyone can be awake on that matter and embrace in every day and every way love's co-creation, bingo, the bubble of the Luciferian illusion will pop, because that Big Bang, everything from alpha to omega, occurred in a nanosecond. We are just experiencing this as a linear thing, 16 billion years, that's nothing compared to eternity, to love's eternity, right? So you're shining this photonic light into your subconscious, and you're walking into your library of your Akashic record. And in front of you, at that end of your library, is a big fireplace with the eternal flame burning in it, right? And all that whole wall that looks like it's made out of these big stones, no, they're not stones, they're not bricks, they're not cinder blocks. What they are books of the Akashic record of your library, right? And so in front of the fireplace is this area of these very comfy leather seats that your guests can stay at. People who visit you through that come down the chimney, and avatars come through the chimney, right? So there are a lot of avatars. The when the old crone comes to visit, she comes through the chimney. If we don't go to her farm, and we can go to her farm through one of the roots in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Saint Germain comes and visits and comes through there, but we can go visit Saint Germain in Shambhala. He's got a very nice house there. And so all these avatars we can either go visit them in their digs through the roots of the tree of knowledge, or they can come visit us in our library through the fireplace, right? And that's where we sit down at those nice comfy seats. Also, Bigfoot, is a dimensional avatar that comes and visits, and that's why people run into Bigfoot all the time on around this world. But we can never take a picture of him or her or the kids, because all they have to do is blink their eyes and bingo, they're gone, right? And so in front of those comfy seats is our reading table, right? And coming from all over our library is photonic light. There are no shadows. There are no shadows for where illusion can hide. There are no shadows where lies and anger and fear can hide, right? And then behind your reading table is your very comfy reading chair. And to the left of your reading table is your librarian. Take a good look at your librarian. Remember your librarian. And to the left of your librarian is your animal totem. See your animal totem. Remember your animal totem. And to the left of your animal totem is your guardian angel. Your librarian brings you the information, and you you open the book and you see two empty pages. I want you to take your right hand and put it on the right empty page, and take your left hand and put it on the left empty page, and you lean into your Akashic record and you evacuate, you empty out all the fear, the anger, the frustration, the anxiety, the self-doubt, self-deprecation, the envy, all of those negative illusions of the world of separation, of Lucifer's non-existent material world. I have to be realistic, and I'm gonna live in the real world. No, you don't live in the real world. Sorry, buddy. Your disbelief is an illusion, and those who have that ability to suspend your disbelief, that is a sign of a person who has a free will. See it clearly. And in every day and every way, you take the piece of the earth and make it stronger with love's co-creation. That's what it's about. Every nanosecond, choosing to be your better self rather than your asshole self. And that's what happens when you get stuck, when you let the illusion make you anxious all the time, you know? And that's why the canary in the coal mine always, that's why that's the way they are, you know? But they're there for us to see, reflect our own fears and go, okay, 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 I got it, you know? I'm going to be more awake. I'm going to step up. I'm going to ascend to my conscious free will and co-create with love. That's what I'm here to do. I'm not here to be a lister. I'm not here to walk on the red carpet. You know what the red carpet is? Vlad the Impaler, his driveway was full of thousands of people that he would stick on these pikes, like up their asshole and out their mouth. And all their guts would come falling out of them and cover his driveway with, organs and blood. And the steps going up to his castle that was the red carpet of blood and hearts and organs. And so every time you see those A-listers walking on the red carpet, that's who they are. They are, the servants of the most satanic, you know, and you don't want to be that because there's a big bill that comes to pay for that. So, do you really want to be famous? You really want to be a billionaire? You really want, as my grandma would say, live like a millionaire, but don't be one, right? And, I live on basically $300 a month. That's what I get from Social Security. And, people, how do you do that? Well, people, who have known me for 20, 30 years, who I've helped them, all of them. I paid everything forward when I was making money and had the time to give to people and help them figure out what was going on, like I'm doing for you guys. But I have this, interesting digital platform, right? And I'm trying to use this satanic platform because every time before I do this, I take a good hour to half an hour to figure out what I'm going to talk about as your, griot, your storyteller, and I infuse it with shamanic energy. So this whole, evening chat is a shamanic ceremony. And all of you are being bathed in shamanic energy. And I'm using this platform. Normally, you gotta be, we're normally in a circle around a fire pit, drumming and dancing. But here we're doing this, and I am using the skill as a griot, which is you tell the story to, there's this thing called a purchase, and it's not to buy something, it's to open something. And in firemen kind of things, the purchase of houses on fire and that heat is sucking the door. You can't open the doors, but people are screaming in there. You got to get in there. So you either chop the door down or you have this, crowbar that kind of, opens it up. And once it opens up, the air goes in and then it whooshes out, right? And if you cut a hole in the roof with a chainsaw and you make the flow go that way, you can rush in, find the people, grab them, and get them out before the whole building collapses, right? So that's what is called a purchase. And that's how you save people in a fire. And you do the same thing in a car accident or any, you need to get at the folk and get them away from harm's way, right? That's what it's about. And that's what this little ceremony is. I'm every night take you on a shamanic journey, and we go into state, and I take you into your library, and I introduce you to your librarian, your animal totem, and your animal totem is also a griot. So you see things. So you have emptied all your anger, and now you close the book. Boom. Now open it up. And instead of blank pages, what you'll see is a empty screen, like TV screen. And on that TV screen, you can see photos or a moving picture or text, kind of like YouTube, right? It's the esoteric occult YouTube. And around the big screen are 28 little screens, right? And what that is, the 22 represent the potential or angle of, we have 22 chromosomes. And men and women have the same 22 chromosomes. When that little sperm hits the egg and turns you into a blast, you have, before you become, a growing little embryo, your cytoblast, and between 3 and 6 weeks, this rush of hormone comes, and it you either get X or Y. So every male and human Homo sapiens sapien has the same 22 chromosomes, just that 23rd chromosome is a Y or an X, right? That's it. So basically, humans, when they say a male or female, I just put human. When it says race, I put down human. And the bureaucrats get very upset, when I go to Social Security or any of that, and I constantly do that, they get very upset with me. You're not playing, But a few of the people behind the plexiglass bulletproof screen kind of get it, right? And say, I'll take care of him. So that's what you know, we're moving towards 300 cadre, I hate the term subscribers. No, you don't subscribe. You're a cadre. And a cadre is this group that, so say we all, right? And you are a cadre of adepts. And what is an adept? An adept is not an empty bag of water, is not a mud puppet, it is not a meat puppet. It is someone who is awake to their conscious free will. Now, unless you are an avatar, it's kind of hard to be awake 100% of the time. But the closer you get to that, the better you're going to be. And the closer you get to being awake through your whole life, you will be given the opportunity to choose when you die, to go where you're going to go, where you're going to go, do what you're going to do, be whoever you want to be. And that's kind of the question. And instead of using a question mark, you know, who are you? What are you? Where'd you come from? I put periods there, meaning this chat here is about you making the choice of deciding what you're going to be, right? So, over all these evenings, like I said, I think we're past 400 of these programs, on my channel, Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. And you can, at your own discretion, go into state every day in every way and go look at everything. Everything is in there. From the moment the Big Bang started so you can see the past, the present, and the future. Now, the future within the dynamics of your experience here is a little hazy, but you can get the 411 of what direction. It's just like, Dickens wrote Christmas Carol, understanding the Akashic record. That's what he was talking about. Go read Dickens' Christmas Carol again, right? And go read Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. We're all going to heaven. We're all going the other way. That's where we are right now. And where have we been since the Big Bang started, right? So I, as your Sensei Al Bob, am exposing you through my, being your griot, and I use the frame of the shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist. I'm doing all of those things at one time. I'm a master of all of them. I got degrees in them. I got more degrees than a clock. Oh, so anyway, and two, you're in a deep, deep, deep state of relaxation. You know, you have evacuated all of the anger, and you're lighter than a balloon. And in your library of your Akashic record, On the right wall, there is a open doorway. The other nine doors have well fastened, locked, closed doors, right? And you're not getting through any of them unless you have an avatar to take you, because that's going through the front door. And you go through the front door of, hell. You go through the front door of, the eight kings of magic. You go through, the front door of fairyland. All these kind of places, you can get pretty messed up, turned around, and screwed. That's what people call the paranormal, right? Things that go bump in the night are in there, and you're not going through any of those doors unless you have an avatar with you to protect you, and bring your whole freaking guides, your librarian, your animal totem, and your guardian angel, to because your guardian angel's there to guard your back. Because when you're looking at things in your akashic record, that's truth. That's information. Now, you may not understand it. You got 28 little windows of, looking at it from every the angle, every, scalar point of view there is. But still, you only have the limitations of your five senses to get this, and you have been, for all of these lives, basically a mud puppet. So, even though you are one of my adept cadre, you are what's an adept? It's a padawan. You're kind of better than a padawan. You are awake to some degree, and you want to ascend to your conscious free will. It's there. You can feel it. That's why you come here every night. And that's why you go back and you watch all the different shows. It's because you want to have this. Right? And why I've died six times, and you'd think the sixth time was a charm, but no. I keep saying, no, you got to go back and stop, So I decided, okay. I'm not, I'm going to heal myself. I'm going to get, into the best shape I can get, and I will pursue this thing I came to this life to do, and that is be your Sensei Al Bob, right? Now, I've only been doing this, 6 months, and we're almost to 300, and 300 to me is the magic number. That's there were 300 Greeks that, stopped the Persian Empire of 500,000 people, right? And kept them at bay for a good long time until the Greeks could get their act together and come and lay the Persians right there. And I've come here because I can't stop. I'm not the hero. I am the Sensei Al Bob, right? I'm not the hero because there isn't any singular hero. No, you know, Hercules to fight for humanity. No. Sorry. And even the avatars like Jesus and Buddha and Vishnu and a whole bunch of others, they came to lead by example. People go, well, when Jesus comes back, everyone's going to hell except for that 100,000 or so, and I'm one of them. The rest of you motherfuckers are going to, and Mom, you gotta watch out. I let the F bomb go every now and then when it's appropriate, because Grandma always said, using the word fuck is okay as long as it's appropriate. The high divine, exactly, buddy. So. That's not it. This ain't gonna, someone asked you, so when's the end of times? And he said, it's beyond my pay grade. And Jesus never left. It is still here. Buddha is still here. Vishnu is still here. That's why, no matter how stupid we are, and boy, we get stupider and stupider every freaking day, and that's why empires fall. Empire gets so stupid it falls, right? And and that's when the open window comes, because that's when If enough adepts come together, as the good book says, when more than two people come together in my name, I mean love's co-creation, bingo, it's okay. And that's, everyone has to go home. Everyone has to get on the bus. Even Lucifer has to go home. And everyone has to be embraced in love's co creation and in love's unconditional forgiveness of love's co creation, including Lucifer. And that's the only way this bubble of illusion is going to pop. Can't fight it with, sorry. Right? And they keep trying to manifest us. Aries wants millions to die in war because they love to drink up that fear, drink up that horror, all that cortisol. That when your adrenaline goes pumping, when you're just about to get incinerated by the nuclear blast. They love that shit, big time. And that's what the hidden hand and the new world order and the powers that shouldn't be and all those sock puppets want, right? And they all think that they got all these underground everything and all those powerful insectoids and rattlesnakes and vipers and no, sorry. All of those guys have to get on the bus of love's co-creation, not chew up and eat the poor little you know Homo sapiens sapiens. And gang, why we're here? I mean that good old Twilight Zone where the big tall guy is the guy who played Lurch, has the big high forehead and he kind of telepathically talks to everyone, but has a little machine that he kind of thinks and then it speaks for him, and he shows up with this big book, right? And they can only translate the title. It says to serve man. And this one guy who was trying to break the code didn't trust these guys, right? And but they stopped war, got it, cured every disease, cleaned up all, free energy, blah 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 blah. Anyway, so after years of not trusting him, he decides, because everyone goes off to their planet. It's like Hawaii and Disneyland put together, and everyone sends back postcards of them having the greatest of times. So he hasn't had a vacation, so he decides to go there, and basically he's getting on the steps. He's the last one on, and his secretary, Dr. Bob, don't get on the book to serve man. It's a cookbook. And so the next scene is, there's, a couple thousand people on the big flying saucer heading to their thing, and they're all at a gigantic buffet. And they're all in lazy boy recliners hovering around, and he's not eating anything, right? And he's smoking cigarettes. And the guy with the big forehead goes, "Oh, come on, look at that buffet." Meaning it's a feedlot, just what they do to cows. Have you ever been to a cow feedlot? Thousands of cows there, and they're just eating and eating themselves, this food that's full of antibiotics. And they give the cows antibiotics not to frigging, kill any germs. No, it shuts down that sense of satiation, so they will eat and eat and eat. And when they're in a food lot, they gain about 100 pounds of fat. And that is where you get that luscious hamburger. And then they go in there with forklifts and they spear the freaking cow and lift it up, and the cows go, "Arr!" And then they kind of drive it in there and slice them up. I used to live next to an avatar where they did that. It's a feedlot, and then the avatars where they cut them up. And when they brought the pigs weren't there, but when they brought the pigs in, the pigs would not get out of the truck, and guys had to kind of go in there with like super duper cattle prods, meaning they would hit this pig and the pig would fly out with like, basically on fire. But before that guy went in there, you could hear the pig screaming, "No, no!" Do talk. The old guy wasn't just hearing his voice; they actually do talk. But they know better, because they know if they were to talk, Brave New, no, Animal Farm, right? Two legs bad, four legs good. Anyway, this is all what's going down, kids, right? So, we're at 1 hour, 35 minutes, and 35 seconds. So, you're in your Akashic record, you've emptied out all of your anxiety and anger and fear, and you've gotten a lot of 411 on what's going on. And now, what we're going to do, all of the different lands I've been taking you to through the tree of knowledge, the roots, we are going to I'm going to show you. I mean, I have been showing you every place we go. That is remote viewing. So to do this on your own, I guide you through this because I am your sensei, Al Bob, your griot, and that's what I do. That's what I've been trained to do. That's what I've been born to do. That's what, I keep dying and no, I can't go home. I gotta keep doing this, right? So, hey, I'm doing it, and that's why my body came back from, death. And like I said, my endocrinologist constantly says to me, I can't believe, you're the healthiest dead guy I know. Because when certain organs get damaged, when bones dissolve, they're not coming back. Sorry. But through your will, your free will, and you're being awake to what you're put here to do, you can do anything. You accomplish anything, right? So I needed to walk around without those braces on my leg. I needed to walk around without that walker. I needed, I can pretty much almost eat anything I want. I have to stay away from the carbs, but I keep my blood sugar between 90 and 114. If I eat, some pasta or, a few too many carbs, a couple pieces of bread, my blood sugar will get up to 120 to 140. But if I don't, and I eat some cinnamon and turmeric, it goes right back down, So that's called using my free will. Being conscious of this, not unconscious. Because we do, I got to be almost 500 pounds by being freaking unconscious. By diving into that swimming pool of chocolate mousse and living in hedonism for about 15 years. Well, I have to say that I enjoyed every moment of it, right? And that's why I did. I had my free will to do it, and I was still meditating, because the job I did for the corporate world, I needed to be in that state to be able to do the work for these people, right? But it's like Dr. Heal Thyself. I was doing, using my skill set, my tools, to make a nice living, easily. I worked 11 weeks of the year and made 3 times what your average high school teacher makes, right? And I only worked 11 weeks. And when I worked, I was totally on, they took care of me. And I stayed in 5-star hotels that not only could my dog stay there, but they had doggy daycare and, they got pedicures and, it was a good life, right? And, I stayed in suites that had jacuzzi and my own swimming pool, So for 15 years, I lived that way. And that was okay because I didn't sell my soul to that. I kind of sold my body to it, my ugly bag of water, and then I died in a plate of spaghetti. But I came back after having, my avatar teachers on the other side say, hey, we're not, you gotta go back and finish the job. You're not, you think you're gonna die, and this is only the 6th time. You got another 3, right? And each time you die, it hurts more. And they're right, But okay, I signed on. Okay, I'm here. I'm doing it. I'm doing what I came here to do. And if you go to my blog, xratted.blogspot.com, that's one of my 26 novels. Now, I didn't draw. I have 26 novels, 80 short stories, and about 300 white papers, and about I don't know, 6, 7 evening shows ago, I kind of read, 2 or 3 pages of one of my white pages just to show you what they're about. So go back and look at them. I even paid to write. I mean, they were grants. They were, you know, I got paid to look at things in a way that most people don't. And I would write about it, and then I would hand it over to whoever my client was, and then they would rewrite it in however they wanted it to appear. And it was fun to, go look at the Council on Foreign Relations little, they have these journals that they put out, once a month or 4 times a year, and all the different, think tanks and nonprofits put out these things. And it was fun to read the stuff that I wrote that got rewrote in, corporate speak. But the ideas, the vision were mine. So they paid me a lot of money, Greckles, for my time and vision. And that was fine because it gave me amazing access to information and experiences that I normally would have if I became a tenured professor, or if I become any one of the, if I become just a newspaper photographer, or just a photographer, or just an artist, or just a healer, or just an electrician, or just all the things that I was a master of. Right? And I did all of them, you know. And working in the corporate world was really fun as a scholar because I could use all those skill sets, right? And so I did that because that's what I liked doing. That's what made my life interesting. That's what allowed me to help lots of people, allowed me to do all the amazing things. And people, oh, you could have done all that in one night. So I had to start taking pictures of everything. Just so, yep, there's me and Gerald Ford. Yep, that's me and Jimmy Carter. Yep, that's me and the extraterrestrials. Yep, that's me and the devil. Yep, there's me and, everyone can be that way. We're meant to be this way. Just finished dishes. See, good, good. Mm. Yep, keep going, buddy. What is that fish? My internet is being crazy, laggy. Why? I don't know. I can't tell. I'm totally non-understanding of this stuff. And I was exposed to computers back in, you know, 1961 when I was in the seminary, and I guess it was no, it was later than that, 64. And my you know computer science, that nobody had computer science, but in that seminary I was learning computer science, right? And we had a terminal that was hooked up to a gigantic UNIVAC, and we had to, write code on cards and paper punch tape. And my teacher had been in England with Turing, you know, um, breaking the Enigma code. And this guy was like, he knew everybody, and he basically told us everything about what was coming, and he said, in the year 2000, this is 1964, I think, give or take. And he says, 2000, because when we built that first computer, we had to have a clock in it, and it was tied to the Hertzian frequency. And we only, our memory was like, one, 20 bits. So we couldn't spend a lot of energy. So we just gave the time for that clock to run out in the year 2000. And, in 1942, the year 2000 seemed a long way away. And he said, well, when it rolls around, all you have to do is reset the clock and, tell the computer whatever date it was, and then put he said, it's a patch. You just need to make a patch. No big deal. But they're going to advertise it like it's like the end of the world. And he knew, he said, you know, who was it? The guy who wrote all the science fiction about robots and, the the three laws of robots, that guy. He understood technology. He understood, he was exposed to technology and the fact that it was already hundreds of years ahead of where they were. And back in the early 50s, he said he was, being interviewed, and he picked up a pack of cigarettes, and he said, in the near future, and he was in a room where a univac was like, was like the size of an office building, like 30,000 square foot was a computer that, did what your digital watch did in 1971, And he picked up a pack of cigarettes, and he said, in the near future, this computer, 100 times the power of this computer will fit into a box the size of this pack of cigarettes. And this device will not only give you access to any information, but it will be your communication device. It will be, your demigod. And that was like 51 or 52 or 53 or sometime around then. And, you know, this is where we are today, gang. And that's why you have to wake up, right? So, what we're going to do, we're 1 hour, 46 minutes, and 46 seconds. And what we're going to do now is you are light, you have kind of let go of all your fear and your anxiety, and you're going to, in that open door, where there is no door, that goes, and you see the staircase and the railing, and then it's a bridge, and it's the bridge of your id, from your subconscious to your superconscious mind. Your superconscious mind is your sanctuary of your own choosing. So, you're at the top of that bridge, and you're looking down into your sanctuary, and you're overstanding everything about who and what you are and where you came from. And you're going to walk down into your superconscious mind, and that is where love's co-creation is with you. It's in your heart. You feel it 100%. When you step on that ground, you will start to cry. You will be ecstatically happy that you're crying. And you're in a place, right in front of you is the meadow, and that is the place where everyone can go and be comfortable. And everyone has their own picnic blanket and their own picnic basket. And in that basket is all of the abundance. It's like a cornucopia. All the abundance right there. And if you can take that basket with you wherever you go, in every day and every way with love's co-creation, please live in abundance. That's why, I get a, 300 and something dollars from Social Security, and that's it. A little bit more, Social Security actually kind of, but they take it away. They give it to you and take it away, right? They give me Medicare, which is useless. So yeah, maybe $500 is what I get from Social Security. But after they take everything out, I have about 300 and something dollars, right? But I don't live in a scarce world. I live in an abundant world. Whenever I need some money, I just kind of go rummaging through my car, and Buddy called it the cornucopia car. And it is, whatever I need, whatever tool I need, whatever book I'm looking for, whatever I need, I just kind of go through it because I've been living in my car for the last 4 years. I got everything I need, right? And so it's always there. When I run out of medicine here, I kind of dig through, oh, here's, that's what you need to do. You need to go in state. 5, 6, 10, whatever amount of times that it takes, to the point where all you got to do is just close your eyes and bingo, you're there. You're in your Akashic record. You've already because you're breathing 20% more and breathing out 30% normally, instead of just breathing the shallow mud puppet breath that keeps you, shackled. That's why you're a puppet. You got these strings because you don't have enough prana in your body. That's why you get old, And that's why, Buddha lived eternally. That's why Jesus is still around. And I've met him a few times. I've run into Buddha once in a while. Vishnu, a couple times. So we are walking down through our sanctuary of our own choosing. We are, love's co-creation. We're arm in arm. And you are walking in your meadow. And there's your picnic blanket and your picnic basket. If you're a little hungry, sit down, have a little nosh with love's co-creation. Then you get up and you walk east of that. West is to where the carnival land is, right? Where the big tent and all the little carny causeway is, of the fun house and the mirror house and the scary house and the love boat and all of that is, right? But to the east of your meadow is the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the tree of eternal life, and the lake of the link, right? So you look down into and then kind of above between your meadow and the carnival land is the homestead, right, of the cadre. And you all go up there, and it is what is known as the Oracle of Delphi. But instead of just a hole in the ground in this hill in, Delphi, Greece, the Oracle of Delphi that our cadre of our adepts, your Sensei Al Bob's cadre of the adepts, that house, our home, is Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water, this house he designed in Pennsylvania. But there it is right there. And it's quite big, right? So you go in there, and the front door is like 40 feet high. And across the top of the door in big gold letters, it says, "Know thyself." And you walk into the lobby, and the lobby, there's a stairway that goes upstairs, and there's this whole wall, and on either side there are 6 doors on one side and 3 doors, and those are the 9 doors, right? But you walk past that, and there's the coat room, right? And the coat room, you go through the coat room. On the back side of the coat room, you walk out from the coat room in the old crone's farmhouse. So if you want to go see you go into the coat room, and you walk to the other end, and you walk out, and you walk into the old crone's farmhouse, right, through her coat room, right? But you walk past the lobby into the common room. The common room, at one end of the common room, is what is known as the hedgerow longhouse. Right? And the hedgerow is those hedges in Ireland that, when they cleared all the fields of the stones, fences, and then those fences were so old, thousands of years old, all of the twigs and branches of the trees that were cut down, which were hawthorn and witch hazel and rose bushes, grew up. All these bushes and trees that had big, long thorns. So these big, thick, stone piles that are about 20 yards wide and miles long have, 1,000 years growth of, Brer Rabbit and Briar Patch. This is like way worse. And that's why the Roman legions can never find the Druids, because the Druids were just on the other side of the hedgerow, and the Romans could hear them, and the Druids could hear the Romans, but the Romans would have to get on their horses and ride 20 miles to where the opening in the hedgerow was, and they go through it and come back. So they'd have to go 40 miles, and when the Druids heard the legion running, in their horses away, they would make themselves scarce, right? And as Sun Tzu says, the best fight you can have is the one you don't have to fight. So that's why the hedgerow surrounds the longhouse. The longhouse is the Iroquois longhouse, and that is where the cadre goes and susses things out. That's where we all sit in a circle and we talk our heart song. See that clearly. And at one end, and that's at the long end of the common room. But at the other side of the common room is like the dining hall, right? And the cadre. And directly across from that are all these doorways that go into all of your individual lodges. And in your lodge, it's like a big apartment. And there is like a sitting room, a dining room, a kitchen, a sleeping area with a facility of everything you need, a bath, a shower, a WC, whatever you need is there to keep your seeming avatar in good shape, your temple, you know, and Ridley Scott, yep. So then there's the dining room, and then these big, and then on the other, on the there's your library, and then the wall of your library, these big windows with big French doors in them. You open up, big patio, and then these steps go down to your garden. And in your garden, there in the middle is your tree of knowledge of good and evil, your tree of everlasting life, and your pond of the great link, right? It's a mirror image of out there in your, you know, superconscious mind, your sanctuary of your own choosing. And you can get to your lodge. You don't have to go through this big journey of going through all of that. You can go straight from your library into your lodge through a shortcut. But I'm just giving you the full, because there are a number of us who are new to this, right? So you're getting this. And guys, you can go back, and like I said, there are almost 400 of these, if not over 400 of these shows. And I would suggest you to start going looking at them and pick out the ones you like best and put them on your hard drive, put them on thumb drives, put them on CD-ROMs, whatever, because I want this stuff spread all over the place, right? Because I don't know, your Sensei Al Bob definitely has a limited warranty here. I've died 6 times, and like I said, I'm in pretty good shape for being a dead guy. So I'm doing my best, and I know I'm not going to die until I got to this place that my avatar, not my avatars, my ascended masters want me to, do the job. Jane, what are those things? Is that a strawberry? What are those blue things? What are they? Can't quite see them. I don't know what they are. Love you, Bob. Yep. Anyway, so no matter what tree of knowledge of good and evil you are standing in front of, look down and see the roots, right? And where we're going is we're going to go back to around 1790 in North America. Actually, we're going to go even back further. We're going to go back to 1480. The richest people, they're like, they're the people who got the Navy. They're the people who got the money. They're like the Elon Musks, but to the 10th power. Because they're kings. They got this blue blood going. So he's going on about, hey, the world is round, it's not flat, and, there's all of this other. We can go to the east this way. And they know the story, meaning they have their own smart guys, like Sensei Al Bob, telling them what the story is. And they have maps showing what, there are maps from that time that show Antarctica, right? So they have the old stories. They have their own griots, And, I've had this position of the griot Sensei Al Bob for many lives, right? And I've been the magician and the fool Now, I couldn't just say, hey, I'm a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist. They would like burn me at the stake as a witch, but to call myself a magician, they could be fine with that, right? And there was a union and the whole thing. And anyway, so I've had that job enough for the rich. And I do it again, did it again. And I keep telling, because I know the secret, the hand, the unseen hand and the powers that shouldn't be and the sun, they're all watching this, of course, and the AI, which is the demigod, they're watching it. And I'm telling them, guys, you understand that you're just hanging them by your fingernails. That's why you put Donnie in there as the guy with the wrecking ball, the great distractor. He's not, that's all he is. He still thinks he's on the set of The Apprentice, you know. And he's lower than The Apprentice. Like he's the his TV reality show should be called The Worm in a Diaper, right? And if you kids went and saw the morning show of Donnie Trump on Johnny's channel or mine, you know, you would get a laugh because there I started it out as being Donnie, and I was being just a bit too much, and John got like so I kind of said on board, and I walked out, and he took over and was Donnie, and then I came back and I was rolling around in my little roll around chair, and basic office chair that you can go around this way, and it's got wheels so you can move around that way. And I was like that little pig go wee wee, and the other words I was going ooh, and I was just playing with my nipples, and the only words out of my mouth was jizz and mayonnaise. So we were like Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin, and at the time John was being Dean Martin and I was being Jerry Lewis. And it had its hilarious moments, right? And I think both of ours I started maybe 10 minutes before he started, and then, he went on another editing it, and I don't do any editing. I just go straight on live chat because I can't do it. It's the only kind of easy way. I just hit that button, live chat, and then put the title and my face and speak for an hour, two or three. So there we are. We're looking down at the roots of the tree of knowledge, and we have traveled, back in time. And this is remote viewing, gang. And you are in, because when you go through the roots of the tree of knowledge, you pop out in these different places and you're invisible. They can't see you. They don't know you're there. Even magicians can't tell that you're there because you're not. You're just energetically seeing the reflection. It's just like Plato's metaphor of the cave. You're seeing that image. That's when the cavemen were doing those drawings on the cave wall because they were remote viewing. And the way they could see it was to draw the picture on the wall. And all those Egyptian tablets, they were remote viewing. And I got, for 30 years, I looked at things of that nature and looked at it from that perspective. And that's why the powers that shouldn't be and the hidden hand hired me, through things like the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission and the United Nations and the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, and the think tanks. I would get these contracts. I would work for them for a few months to a year, looking at things in a way that no one looked at them. So I was given, okay, let him do that. Let him, he's eccentric, hey, we're not going to make him, jump through any hoops because, hey, he's doing stuff for us that no one else does. And, he is of an age. I mean, we used to have these other guys doing it, but they're so old they can't do it anymore. And he studied with them. So he's their adept. That's what I was. I started as a Padawan under Grandpa Stoll and my grandma and Madame Olga Kluver and Billy Kluver and, George Christie. And then getting more, So that's the bottom line. You are there in the courthouse of the king and queen of Spain while Chris is going on, and he's going, we'll find this. It'll be great new, it'll be like Amazon. So he goes there, and he kind of knows he's not going to end up in India. But that's why he called the indigenous folk Indians, because he kind of had to brand it that way, right? And the queen gave Chris, he was no seaman, he was no navigator. He was just basically, kind of like me, but not me, because his ego it's all was about his ego. And I try to have the egoless ego, meaning, hey, I know I'm in a bag of water. I know I'm a mud puppet. I know I'm a meat puppet, but I try to be awake, to cut those strings. So, but not Chris. So I try to have, because if you're one of those puppets, if you're in a bag, you basically motivate that bag of water, you have to have an ego. The thing that animates it is the prana, is that current. But we so pollute our bodies that the current is like a tenth of what it could be. And when we go into state and breathe 20% more, that's when we really energize ourselves with that photonic light. That's what this is all about. That's why I'm constant. That's what that blue swirl above me is about. That's the prana energy swirling, right? And got my back there, so I'm not worried about any attack. And I've got a 360 going on, so whatever might come my way, I will know and get out of harm's way. I'll be ready for it. Like the comedian who's ready for it, and someone tries to say something, you cut them off, you give your line, and you drop the microphone and walk off stage. The finger. Give him the finger, And, in England, that meant victory, and that meant up yours, right? So whenever you do that, you're giving people the finger. And if you do it in America, people don't know that. You do that in England, people get upset with you. So, and, in Australia, here they call people dickheads. In Australia, they call them Richard Craniums. So in America, you just call people Richard Craniums. That's the beauty of traveling around the world. You get to learn all these little lingos. And man, when you learn those kind of euphemisms and languages that people don't even know, that's even better. Anyway, like Gaelic and Hebrew and Farsi, French, German. German is a great language. But that we're now 2 hours, 8 minutes, so I will go in about Germany another time. But there you are, and you're seeing all the edifice of the artifice. You're seeing, because you have this perspective of being in state. You can see how artificial everyone's. Even though they're the most powerful people in the world, they're scared, that they're going to lose their control, and that's their biggest weakness. And that's what gets passed on, empire to empire, is that weakness, right? They can't embrace love's co-creation because they think, we're in a Luciferian illusion. If we, embrace love's co-creation, this is just going to pop and we'll lose our control. They don't realize they'll get on the bus and go have unconditional love and forgiveness. I mean, they're scared that they're like little children. They're scared they're going to be punished. And that's why the present day powers that shouldn't be and the hidden hand, they basically control this edifice of a breakaway civilization that the Nazis went to Germany. They in the early 20s and 30s, when they were the Thule Society, they had these women who could go into state and remote view all the stuff, and people didn't understand. No one was doing that. I mean, they had done it a zillion years ago, but these girls were born with this skill, and and that's what the Nazis, the Nazis came out of Thule Society, and the Thule Society had come to the United States in the 1740s and went to California. And where Palomudo is, where Lockheed first had their thing, and where the TV guys were, and all of that magic stuff. Hollywood, holly is every magic wand is made from the holly tree. So Hollywood is the magic wood. They are make all everything from Hollywood is beyond satanic and magic. Everything. Disney, you name it, it's off the hook. And that's also where Silicon Valley is. That's also where Lockheed, Boeing, all of the research, McDonnell Douglas, Grumman Aerospace, all have their version of the skunk works, because it's just over the mountains to all of those ranges, Area 51 and, you know, Papoose and all those places, Kirkland Air Force Base, Los Alamos, Sandias, all those places. And that's where these Germans went in the 1740s. And they started developing the technology for flying saucers, right? And they were, totally satanic, and they were understanding all the stuff that's going on. They could see time and space, right? And through, you know, magic, they were doing this, but they were developing technologies, because not everyone can, wield the magic wand. And so within the construct of this, new Reich that they wanted to bring about, it didn't start in the 30s. No, I'm sorry. It started in the 1740s. So they were out doing this. And if you were to, there are a number of YouTube channels where people have unearthed this information, and those things were called airships, and they kind of looked like dirigibles, but they were anti-gravity devices. They used the same thing. They had, a mercury-based fluid, through Van de Graaff generators, and it made a bias, was lighter than air, and it didn't have a gas in it. It had this device in it. And so that started in the 1740s. And around the 1790s, and they knew this was happening, that Planet X came through our solar system. It comes through every 26,000 years. And it totally messed things up. And basically, from 1492 until 1860, the mid part of America was not really, why did we have just 13 states? I mean, we went from 1492 to 1790, whenever, we had the revolution, 1776. Why didn't we go west? Well, because there were about 120 million indigenous people there. And they were, they already figured out what white people were. So white people kind of went over and they were like, they just freaking killed them. Because back in the day when Chris showed up in the Caribbean, which was Haiti, he landed on Haiti basically. And that, the Queen did not give Chris the best boats, or, the guys, the seamen, were not even seamen. She just took people out of jail and put them on a boat and said, okay, you can either die in jail or get on this boat and maybe you'll be okay. And they went over there, and, normally if they were good seamen, they could go from Spain to the Caribbean in 2 or 3 weeks. Well, they were out there 6 months going around in circles. And they didn't have enough food, and their food rotted, and they got scurvy, and they got near those islands. The Indians went out there, picked them up, and brought them back into their hogans and cleaned them up and nursed them back to health. And when Chris could get up and get his little, these people are great. They're tall, they're strong, they're brown, bright, they're generous, they're they, it just goes down all the things that how great they are, and at the end, he said, they'll make great slaves. And he said, give me 10 men with muskets, and I could. And at that time, Haiti had 3 million people on that island. And it was the most groovy of all the Caribbean islands. And he came back 2 years later with 1,000 men with rifles and cannon, and he killed 3 million, killed them all, and took it over. Right? And that's why Haiti is so messed up. And in that island, Haiti's one side and Dominican Republic is the other. That's where all the rich people live, right? And it's just there is no fence or line or river or mountain. It's just this line. This is Dominican Republic. That's Haiti. These people are always going to be rich and suffering. These guys are. I mean, these people are poor and suffering. These people, and that is the magic mushroom of the materialistic motif of you know the poor get poorer, the rich get richer. The land of not enough and the rich people. And in the 1600s, the slave trade was the Africans were brought there by the Dutch from freaking Connecticut, not guys in the South. And you look at history, and it's nothing what you learned in high school. Everything you've been told is a lie. So okay, you're in the throne room with the Queen of Spain. You see everything what went on. You see what went on the boat. You see what happened in Haiti, right? Then we kind of move to the Pilgrims and all those people who came for religious freedom. No, they wanted to just rip people off. And so they came, and why did they, burn the witches and drown them? Because those girls knew what was up and they were sassy and the guys didn't want to hear it. Now the rich people, they kept a few of those ladies around because they were women of the, when the plagues went across Europe, the rich people, the kings and queens, they had their herbalists. They didn't burn, but the Catholic Church burned everybody else. Now the Pope and the bishops, they all had their herbalists, their witches. But the poor people of the towns, they right, and they knew about the fleas on the rats, and they made sure that those fleas that carried the plague were on those ships when they docked. And they knew it, and because certain cities did not get the plague because they didn't let the rats come into their cities. Naples and Florence. So all you have to do is go back, and these things are in the literature. The history books are a lie, but the literature, the poetry, Chaucer's tales. You want to know what's going on? That Shakespeare. You want to know what's going on? That the Greeks. I mean, all the plays, all the theater, all the poetry, all the bards. That's why I'm a bard of metaphor. That's why my writing is like James Joyce on acid, right? So go to xratted.blogspot.com and, read a page or two, if you can't read a whole story, So I have 3/4 of one novel. The last quarter I did not put there because you have to go through all of this. You have to be able to go into state. You have to be able to see your Akashic record to be able to read that last quarter of that novel. But the other, 3/4 are 6 stories, each between 20 and 60 pages long. And there are cuts, cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can read them in any direction you want. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 6 and 3 and 2 and 4 and 5 and 1. They work any which way you want to. And that's the shamanic thing about them. Let's see. There's an element. Let's see what you guys have been saying. Yeah, that's right. Research. Take your pick from evil. It's all there, and just take it. You need to be a shamanic, psycho, social, cultural, forensic. You have to take things apart because the parts are larger, more informative than the sum of the parts. Right? That's why I'm a forensic anthropologic. And what is anthropology? But the discipline of looking at psychology, sociology, culture in a way without prejudice. Now, of course, that isn't what's done in the scholastic world. Everyone's run by a textbook. Groom Lake, yep. Time travelers, dimension shifters, yeah, they're all there. Yeah. And they've been there forever. And our, little avatars were somebody's alchemical, science project. Our avatars are somebody's, not our conscious free will, because they can't touch that, but they can distract us by putting us through reincarnation at death, keep cycling us around, and they live off of that photonic energy, right? And when you go into state, it becomes extraordinarily pure. So it's like them doing crack and heroin. They OD. So that's why they don't let people, get any more energized than what they need. And they keep them in line with fear, because the more they can freak you out with fear, the more they can feed on your adrenaline that's so socked with cortisol. And that's their crack. That's their heroin. That's their fentanyl. Evil is a P of dualism. Yep, yep, yep. So we shift back into the great singularity. Yep, all our relations. That's the great singularity. That's why we're at this window of opportunity. That's why you guys need to, every day in every way, take the piece of the earth and make it stronger. With love's co-creation, you do that by going into state and going, through your imaginary mirror, you know. Yeah, photonic protoplasm. Yeah, psycho. Yeah. Yep, entropy. Yep. That's why I keep saying, guys, when more than two come together and work through love's co-creation, that's why we have to build this alternative aesthetic to the illusion of Luciferian reality, right? And we can only do that through love's co-creation of as the artist in the first person, as the savage. So through poetry, through theater, through art, visual arts, musical arts. That is why I want to bring forth the traveling video art circus, because the circus, the carnival, forever, all the way back, has been the people's magic flute. There is an element which is a G particle, which essentially Al Bob says is photonic plasma. Yep. I mean, and that's just, I'm just using a term that alchemists use. We can, again, I keep going on about, an alternative aesthetic, because aesthetics are part of the Gestalt, a lightning understanding. That's why I love German words. The Gestalt of this amazing bing, Tom Terrific, light bulb over the head, lightning understanding, but it is culturally informed, which means it's within the construct of whatever, within the shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemy. So to understand that psychology, you need that shamanic frame to place it on. All our relations, right? There is no other. There is no separation. It's all our relations. So say we all, right? That's why we're the cadre of the adepts, right? You're my adepts. You're my students. To become, senseis yourself. It's a little path that you kind of, you got to, where do they go? Pay your dues. And you guys have been doing it in spades, right? That's why if you go into state many times a day, you won't get worried, you won't get upset, you will always be right where you're supposed to be. All things are as they should be. And, we will work as a cadre, more than two together. And that is the doorway that we will open for all our relations, not as heroes, but as a cadre of all our relations. And as more and more of all our relations become part of the cadre, that's what will pop the bubble of fears, anxieties, of Luciferian illusion, right? And the whole need for control and power and anger and fear will just like a soap bubble. Boop. And everyone gets on the bus and gets to go home. Everyone, Lucifer included, you know? And again, good and evil are illusion in this illusionary world because the only thing that exists is love's co-creation. Yep, ion planes. Yep. And what does esoteric mean? It means hidden knowledge. But again, you have to go through the roots of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And within the construct, good and evil is this dualistic thing. By going through the roots, you see where everything comes from. And you realize there is no duality. That's why we need to create this alternative aesthetic, because everything within the juxtaposition of separation of illusion is an aesthetic. And we just have to define this one that goes around this illusion of separation and scarcity and the other. That informs everyone that we are all our relations. See it clearly. They've had germ warfare forever. I mean, like I said, back in the the time of the plagues, the 9th to 11th century, they knew all about those fleas. They made sure that they got the fleas with the plague on it, put it on those rats, and put them on those boats. The Irish potato famine that was caused, meaning the English, botanists understood which fungus was going to eat up those potatoes, and by law, the Irish could only eat potatoes. And when they turned, when England became the industrial neck of the woods and all their land was used to manufacture, they turned Ireland into, their garden. And they passed laws saying the Irish could only eat potatoes because it was carbohydrates, which gave them a lot of momentary energy to do a lot of work. But it shortened their life. I mean, the average Irish person lived to be 40 if they made it that long. And so and it was against the law. So there they were running these farms, growing, carrots and broccoli and spinach and you name it, because Ireland was so fertile. And all they could eat was potatoes. And then when the Irish became, starting to overpopulate the place, when there was pushing 10 million of them in Ireland, they basically said, okay, by law, they can only eat potatoes. So if we get rid of the potatoes, we'll get rid of the people, right? They'll starve to death, right? Well, they basically did that, and they got that fungus, and they, basically like they do with, cattle and dogs, they, engineered that fungus to be stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. They bred it, and then they spread it on the potatoes in Ireland. And within 1 year, the blight, right, took off like a rocket ship. And by law, so they're the Irish, they couldn't eat anything. They had their kids are starving to death, and they couldn't eat anything. And but they're working in the fields and they're like picking carrots and broccoli. And if they were to pick one carrot and stick it in their parents and pants and take it home to the kids, they would hang the Irish. And that's why in Dublin, all those oak trees are where the English hung those people. And out in all the counties, in the county seats, they had all these trees lining the roads because that's what, Vlad did when he impaled everyone. I mean, this is an old trick. This is what goes on. It's what's going on now, you know? And so, and that's what drugs are. It's what's killing all of the young folk, the opiate addiction. Man, if you wanted to stop, heroin stopped in the United States. And that's why we went on to cocaine because Afghanistan, England was the country that brought heroin, morphine, opium to the world, right? The opium wars of China weren't about China trying to get Europe to do opium because opium came from the poppies in India, right? No, China had all this groovy stuff that England wanted, but China said, we don't want any of your crap. What we want is your gold. So you can't have any of our, China, any of our teas, any of our, all the stuff you want, you're not getting from us. And that's why the English brought opium into China to addict the population so they could just take it and not have to war them, right? And all this stuff is pretty much right in your face. It's out there, not in the history books though, in the plays and the poetry and all of the above, right? So when the Russians invaded Afghanistan and then the Taliban, who we, through Saudi Arabia, brought the, real hard-ass dudes, the wallabies, who are not even Muslims, they're just killing machines. They're an extract of the Khazarian mob. And out of that came the Taliban, and we financed them. We brought them to power. They were our guys, and we put them there. That's why we walked away. We could have, after the Russians left, we could have stayed there and brought Afghanistan back to what it was before the Russians showed up, which meant a highly educated, half the women in the legal system and in the legislatures in Afghanistan in the 50s and early 60s were women. More than half the doctors were women. More than two-thirds of the teachers were women. And then we brought in this beyond radical, psycho crew of dudes to go after the Russians. And that ship that was sunk, at mooring, that destroyer that got whacked in Abu Dhabi. What it was a motorboat with a Stinger missile, on a big pole. And these guys, drove the boat, and the Navy guys were looking. Oh, so look at that! It's a little speedboat, and it came right and smashed into the ship right at the waterline, and the charge of a Stinger is quite a very powerful explosive. 20 pounds of it is like 100 pounds of TNT, or 200 pounds, and it blew a gigantic hole, and a whole bunch of guys there, and they drowned. 16 to 30 people died, and that was really the beginning of what the new Pearl Harbor. That was the beginning of the red flag of 9/11. That was brought to us by the neocons, right? And all of this stuff is pretty much right in our face, But nobody wants to look at it because the public has basically, again, just like in Rome, been bought up with the Americas. Here in America, what we have is our, smartphones, flat screens, and fast food. So, and Rome collapsed when it was at its most mightiest and ruled the world. But they had spent a good 60 years taking over everybody else's land and forgot about, the infrastructure and education and the folks back at home. And they just bought them off and they became morons. They all got lead poisoning and went from like an IQ of about 112 down to an IQ of about 40. And that's kind of where we are now, with our education of no child left behind, which means every child's left behind. LBJ's Great Society meant you're going to get screwed. It's like, it's right in front of us. And yet we have this window of opportunity because and why we need to create an alternative aesthetic is because everything that the population is like addicted to is this corrupt aesthetic of materialism, of drugs, of hedonism, we need to develop an alternative aesthetic of service to love's co-creation, where what makes me happy isn't having a Lincoln and an Escalade and a big house and a trophy swimming pool of cocaine. No. It's when I help people who have less than I do, and I make them happy through my service to love's co-creation. That's when I'm happy. That's what makes my day. And that's why I do what I do every morning and every day through Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. Right? That's why I respond to all of your emails through my The Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. And that's why I left, 2/3 of my novel, one of my, 26 novels, there at xratted.blogspot. And all you folks, Jane and Buddy and Sarah and everyone who ink, all of you research, all of you who are really sharp, who are really there. Go read that stuff. Fish, go see it. Dragon, go see it. Because if you read it enough times, if you go into state and look at your Akashic record where that book is, you read it at Blogspot and then go look at it in your Akashic record, the code will just kind of dissolve. You'll see in the 28 little TV screens what it's about. And this is what I'm here to do. This is why I do this every day. This is why there are 400 shows in since May. I look at a lot of people's channels. Oh, I've been doing it since '06, and I've got 12 videos up. So that's why I do this. So 2 hours, 38 minutes, and 53 seconds. So you've seen, enough of this remote viewing. You can do it yourself. Start getting yourself these little notes and start taking notes. Write things down. Put them in your smartphone, however you want to write, because when you write something down, it does something in your head that makes you understand. You took notes in school not to remember, because you remember everything. It's just getting it out of your Rolodex that's the difficulty. But when you go into your Akashic record, when you look at the text, that book, it has everything that you hear and see and that's around you. How do you think Edgar Cayce, he was called the sleeping prophet, right? He would, when he was a young man, he would put the textbook under his pillow, go to sleep, and know it word for word. Because he would go into his Akashic record, he'd see that book. This is what you can do. It's in you. You can do it. You don't have to dance around it. You don't have to make excuses. You don't have to complain. You don't have to get in a rut, You can do better. You can step up. You can access your conscious free will. You don't have to be a mud puppet, an ugly bag of water. You don't have to be that. You can be that beautiful flower in bloom, in love's co creation. Yes, you can. Yep. Town magic maker. Yep. Mr. Big's unseen thumb. There it is. Where is it? There it is. That's it, Mr. Big's thumb. That's it, my big thumb. Boop doop boop boom. Time travelers, evils, enthalpy. Boop doop doo. There is an element. Yep, yep, yep. Photonic plasma. Yep. Mm-hmm. Doo-doo. I mean, they had nuclear. There's places in India and in North Africa where they have what is known as Trinity glass, meaning when they detonated the first atomic bomb there in New Mexico, all of that sand, within a mile or so of ground zero, turned into this green glass, and it was like the isotope of plutonium and the sand, right? So it was kind of radioactive. And that green glass is in lots of places in India and lots of places in North Africa. And they can tell by carbon dating because, it's a radioactive isotope and it has a half-life of 100,000 years. And so if X amount of that isotope is, just giving off this amount of radiation, they kind of know how many years ago that nuclear weapon was detonated in that neck of the woods. And it's like, some of that glass is 1,000,000 years old. Some of it's 300,000 years old, meaning they've been detonating nuclear weapons all around our solar system and our planet, for a good 1,000,000 years, right? And there are other weapons, like why we have George Lucas sat at the feet of Joseph Campbell for a year and just took notes. And everything that came out of Joseph Campbell's mouth was the libretto or the storyline of Star Wars. And Lucas did not give Joseph Campbell one iota of credit or tip of the hat or a thank you or a postcard. Should have given him a few bucks. But Joseph Campbell was like, I don't care. At least the story got out and millions of people looking at it. That's what my job is. So, okay, so George Lucas was a selfish little boy. That's his problem, not mine. So he never said a word. Never said a frickin' word. But I had spent some time at his feet, you know. I heard him lecture a number of times, and so there were a number of people who were more of his student than I was. I was just a griot, right? I was just a adept passing through, right? I didn't at that time, didn't have my scholarly chap, so, I just stayed there for a month or two and hung out and listened to lectures and talked to him. He would go to the cafeteria for a cup of tea and ask him questions and, what book should I read? And he gave me a number of his books, and that was a great blessing. But George Lucas never said a friggin' word. And no one's ever called Lucas on it. So, our moon is actually the Death frigging Star. And the Nazis, first, the guys, before they were Nazis, when they were fools, when they were in California in the 1740s before the mud flood, they traveled the world. They went to Tibet. They went to all the holy books that no one was looking at. And they were looking for, in the Forbidden Planet, the Krell. They were looking for those guys. And that's, they kind of found the what was in the South Pole, you know, back in the 20s, you know. And they found those underground, Shangri-La. They found Shangri-La. And they found all this ancient technology from Atlantis, So they found spaceships. They found lots of stuff. And that's when, once they found that, that's when the reptiles showed up, or at least came to them and said, okay, we can show you about this stuff. We can show you how it works, show you what it is. We can give you a heads up, a leg up, you know. And so by the beginning, when Adolf, when the National Socialist Party, you know, took power, from the German chancellery, they were already there and they were already heading into space. Not with rocket ships like Werner von Braun, but with, and they were that movie Hellboy, when they're there in that Scottish island. That actually freaking happened. And they actually freaking poked a hole in a dimension and Hellboy and other things came out. And we did the same thing with the Philadelphia experiment. We did that experiment on a specific date where the universe, its biorhythm was, our little universe and our solar system is like an accordion. And so we waited till that accordion was like this. So when we poked a hole through the dimension, we poked it through like 60 dimensions, not just one. Because if the accordion was open, it would have just gone through one of those little crinkles. But when it was squished together, it went through all of them. And that's why things happen like when the blackout happened in the 70s. That was beneath eastern Long Island, Brookhaven National Laboratories, the Montauk Project, and a whole bunch of others. Nikola Tesla, when he built his Wardenclyffe experiment, basically turned all of Suffolk County into one gigantic phased array. In the 80s, when I was out there trying to stop the Shoreham nuclear power plant, because I worked in nuclear power, I knew what was good and what was bad, and this was being built by the mob who could barely wire a 3-pole switch. Anyway, so I was out there digging up stuff, looking at things, talking, trying to get this stopped any way I could. And, I went out to the Brookhaven laboratory and said, listen, if you guys don't do something about this, I'm going to blow up and kill everyone here, and your little gravy train here at the National Laboratory is going to be over. You guys are authority. You better, get to the shtick. So they tried, and they didn't. So I had access through those guys and other people to see a lot of strangeness. And, what Preston Nichols writes in his book and what Al Bielek wrote, and just the tip of the freaking iceberg. And at one of those conferences where those guys they were like I can't talk about it. I like blew the lid off of everything. And that's when, the sock puppets got scared and said, oh, we can't have him part of the club. Ooh. But when I gave this, blew the socks off of everything, and it was 1986 maybe, 85, somewhere around there, at this conference. And it was at the UN. It was about alternative, and I mean, people from all around the world were there. And basically, like I said, the sock puppets were, we have to blackball this guy. But the guys who were from the hidden hand, meaning above the Rothschilds, above the Rockefellers, those guys are just middle management. The other guys came over, and, I was sitting at this table. No one sat at my table, It was like being in high school, and I was being ostracized. And these other guys who were like, came and said, boy, that's a pretty interesting little speech you gave there, kid. Can I have lunch with you? I said, sure, come here, So there were 6 of these guys who sat down, and George Christie was like, I liked this kid a lot. The other guys came along because George sat down, He said, can I sit? Sure. And then these other guys sat down, and we all started talking, and they said, boy, You really know your First Amendment, don't you? I said, and this one goes, aren't you scared? So what are they going to do? Kill me? Big deal, you know? And that's when George says, well, this kid understands, that his little meat, and he called it a meat puppet. His little meat puppet, someone has cut his strings, and when he dies, he's not going to just be recycled back. He's going someplace else. So that's when they invited me to join the whoop-de-doo, and then, first I kind of had to be, I had to be their adept, you know, and that was cool. That was much, instead of just being read in right away, I didn't want that. And so a good 3 years went by where, I was taken out to lunch, I was shown things, and I got the best of it without the worst of it. I didn't have to get in the bathtub and being urinated on and shat on. I could just hang out with these guys, and they were the top echelon. Now, they weren't the owners, but they were the top, they were the bottom, they were right on that level between the owners and the managers. And they were the top, 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 top of the managers, right? And they had, they knew Madam Olga Kluver, and they knew Billy Kluver, and they knew Grandpa Stahl, and they knew a lot of my mentors. And they, were keeping an eye on me. And when I gave that little speech, that's when, so I did not continue in that scene because the sock puppets like, ooh, oh, we're scared, oh, because after I finished that speech, no one said anything. They were all staring at me, and the guy who is Clarence, who was the head, he was like part of that, and it was called the ISIS Foundation, right? And the goddess Isis was, and he was part of that, and he kind of tried to make a joke, saying, "Whoa, Al really knows his First Amendment," and so that was quite interesting, and then instead of being part of that, esoteric occult crew, that was like a waste of time because they were not stepping up to their conscious of free will. They were just in a rut. And today, all of those conferences are pretty much, they are the stepchild of all the conferences, the Whole Life Expo and all of that kind of stuff that we kind of, and we were, part of the Theosophical Society and these other esoteric things. Now, I was never into magic, because, Madam, Olga Kluver, who was, an avatar, an ascended master, but she stuck around in her body just like, Saint Germain had done, because she thought that it's much better to stay in a body and do things like she did with me, be my, sensei. And it's hard to be a sensei when you're an avatar out of your body, right? So if you want to teach the adepts, you kind of have to, and the same thing with, Star Wars, when Obi-Wan Kenobi, he's hiding out in a cave and he's waiting for Luke. I mean, he's staying on that, he could have gone to any place, but he's keeping an eye on Luke. And when Luke needed him, he was there. And so when Luke had to step up to his conscious free will, that's when, Obi-Wan did everything he could. And then when he knew that, okay, if I stick around, I will be just enabling Luke not to step up. So, okay, I'm going to, step in front of Darth Vader, Luke's daddy, my old Padawan, and, step up to him, see if he can step up to the consciousness of his free will. And when he got, he like laid his, enough to turn off the big magnet so the kids could get away, but he knew they were going to stick a thing in there, and that's why they'd get away. But he knew that Luke had been juiced up, so if there was anybody to save the day, it was going to be Luke, right? And that's, if you go read Joseph Campbell's myth of the hero, That's what that first Star Wars was all about. So, and then Lucas just milked it for all it was worth with all those other friggin' loser movies. Though Return of the Jedi I liked, you know. So, and the Empire Strike Back wasn't so bad, but the rest of them, oh God, please. So, except until the girl showed up, then that was pretty cool. When Han got sliced by his son, but that's straight out of Shakespeare, right? Again, this is the alternative aesthetic. Now, George Lucas is missing it by a mile because he is totally, he and Steve got, they are working for the hidden hand, the powers they shouldn't be. They're part of that Hollywood crowd. And so they kind of, they couldn't, again, they're just like Darth Vader in that at a certain point, you got to be Darth Vader to be able to, do, everything is as it should be. Darth did exactly what he had to do because that duality between the Force and the dark side has to come together, and that's where we're at now. We're at this duality, and the only way it can work out is by the crew of the adepts, the cadre, has to develop this alternative aesthetic that its foundation is love's co-creation, not fear, not anger, not wielding a lightsaber. You know, I liked that scene from when the girl shows up and she's running around, looking for Luke, and she goes through that space where her her ego is sliced up into multiple mirrored images, right? And that's why she realizes, oh, these are like steps, and I have to kind of go through all of this to get to my free will up there, And that's why I'm interested in that story, see what they do with that. Buddy. My Schwartz is attached to my Ewok. You know it's true. You know it's true. Yeah, they sold it to Disney. And again, all things are as they should be. I mean, any more satanic, you know, the Disney brothers, Walt and his chubby brother, were 100% Nazis, along with, Henry Ford and a host of others, good old Prescott Bush. George H. Bush wasn't from the loins of Prescott. George H. was, that book about George, the curious monkey with a man with the yellow hat, right? The man with the yellow hat was a Russian spy that was keeping an eye on Nikola Tesla. He was his number one assistant, right? And he always wore a yellow hat. And his son was George. And he, as a 6-year-old, he went all over the lab stealing things like a little monkey. Now, if his father had stole those things, he would have gotten fired. But because George was stealing them and then giving it to the KGB guy, he was fined. So when that kind of change occurred, and again, it wasn't the KGB, it was more the hidden hand, but they came from Russia. And the whole thing of the Russian Revolution was a joke because Marx and Engels were both in English prisons during World War One. They were spirited from those prisons, English warships with $10 million in gold, and brought to Germany. England and Germany are fighting a war, but a English warship brings Trotsky and Lenin to Germany, and the Germans spirit those two guys with the $10 million worth of gold into Russia to ferment the revolution, which caused, the Russians were part of the English and French allies, and then the revolution until they came out. So the war lasted another 4 years, 1.5 million more people died. Those innocent people who would have changed the world for the good. I mean, World War One just devastated the moral equilibrium of the planet. It was a satanic ritual beyond belief, and every war since has been that. World War Two was even worse. And all of these guys, the Russians, the English, the French, the Americans, you name it, they all have, it's a cabal. The hidden hand is a cabal, and there's no nationalist anything. They're all working for, you know, New World NWO. Right? And they want to annihilate, 90% of the human race. They want to get rid of 6 point something billion people in the next 10 years, right? And this window of opportunity is if we can develop, we can, jerk off here, or we can, build the Humanities Artist Trust International. It's a 501c3 that we can take all their money they want to give us, and we can then bring forth the traveling video art circus that we can go around and like Johnny Appleseed, drop the seeds of this alternative aesthetic and let other people in their own neighborhoods, in their own towns, in their own villages, in their own countries develop this. That's a commonality, but it's, shamanically, psychosocial, culturally, forensically, anthropologically, alchemically built for them to be responsible to step up through their consciousness's free will. Can't do it for them. We can give them, just like I can't do it for you guys. I am your Sensei Al Bob. I can give you the tools. I can keep the eye on the ball. I can help, I can live my life through example. But in the end line, you guys need to step up to your conscious free will. Or, just keep chatting, you know. So that's why you need to go in state, at least 3 or 4 times a day, if not 10 or 20. And it's practice makes perfect. And every time I close my eyes, my, imaginary mirror illuminates with photonic energy, and I go straight into state. I go straight into my Akashic record, And I'm right there at the desk. The book is open, and I'm looking at the pages, the big screen with the 28 little screens. Close my eyes, I can see the screen. That's why I close my eyes. I can see you guys energetically through this little, this little thing right here. I can see you through this. So can the hidden hand. So can the powers that shouldn't be. Right? So can Lucifer. Buddy, you are buddy. No one needs to castigate themselves. All you got to do is step up. I mostly do 2 a day, but, I do at least 1. But some days, a couple days, I was tired. My body hurt. I just wanted to stay in bed. I could roll over and maybe do 1 in bed. I did. But even then, sometimes I'm too tired to do that. But pretty much 98% of the time, I will do 2 of these, classes a day. Because I know, I don't know when I'm going. I could live another 20 years, who knows? Or I could die tomorrow. That's what my endocrinologist, you're the most healthy dead guy I ever know. And I have all the freedom of the world, but sometimes, but not really. The cash flow is never a real problem. People can't, how do you live on $300 a month? I can never do that. Because the universe is, not Lucifer's universe, but love's co-creation has got my back. Because I am serving love's co-creation, Gotta put his shirt on now. Well, you can play with your nipples. It's okay, Twitchy. We're not watching. I am, but not everybody else is. Anyway, so here we are. Oh, look at that. 3 hours, 3 minutes, and 33 seconds. I love it when synchronicity comes together like that. So I think I've talked enough, and you've experienced enough. So go on, buddy, you're waking up, and um, Twitchy, you got to put a shirt on to go to work. That's cool. Anyone who's waking up and starting the day, go have a beautiful day. All those who are in the middle of your day, have a beautiful afternoon. All those in the afternoon, have a beautiful evening. All those going to bed like me, I'll see you in dream time. Okay. I love you guys. That's 4:09. So you got the whole afternoon to play, buddy. Go have a good day. Boop 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 boo. Good night, Al. Sweet dreams, y'all. Sweet dreams, Jane, Sarah, Twitchy, my cadre. I love you all. So let's see. At 3:07 and 7 seconds, I will say goodnight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good night.